Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast, where we shine a light on extraordinary authors and the stories behind their stories. I'm your host, Chris Dabbs, and today's guest is someone whose life reads like a novel itself. It's quite amazing, so buckle up for this one. Joining us is Patrick L. Scott, a former Peace Corps volunteer, attorney, athlete, and world traveller. From rural Northern California to the rugby fields of Europe, and from practicing law for over 3 decades to kayaking wild rivers, Patrick has lived a life of grit, adventure, and resilience. Today we're diving into his riveting novel, A Just Revenge, a cross-continental action story that takes readers from small-town California to India, Los Angeles, and the elite enclaves of Europe. It's a tale of justice, survival, and transformation, drawn deeply from Patrick's own experiences with hardship, mentorship, and relentless pursuit of truth. So stay tuned. This is a conversation you won't want to miss.
I've been an athlete all my life.
Right.
And I used to bicycle 30 to 40 miles a day.
Right.
4 or 5 times a week. I've kayaked, mountain climbed, did a lot of outdoor camping, and cleared trees from forests and stuff like that. In addition to my law practice.
Yeah.
So and I had a big law practice by myself.
All right.
I had 8 secretaries working for me at one point. Paralegals and secretaries.
Yeah.
And I worked some days 16 hours a day. But that was all right, because then I ran. I got 5 hours of sleep a day.
What more do you want, right?
I know, that's what I lived on.
Yeah.
And and I would run 5 miles a day, so I had to keep that up because I was doing triathlons.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So running, biking, and then in California, in Sacramento, we had a triathlon called Epi's Triathlon. He put on for almost 40 years. Yeah. That was running, biking, and kayaking down river. And I used to kayak big whitewaters, so the kayaking part was easy,
right?
Because it was there was only a couple of major rapids, and it was fun. And the people who did the race were fun, And as a matter of fact, the year after I broke my neck, I was in a wheelchair, and my son, my daughter, and 5 or 6 of the people I used to train with all ran with me, doing the running part.
Yeah,
so I did the running part in my wheelchair, and they stood with me and hung with me, made sure that I got there, because I was just a year out of the hospital.
Gosh, oh man, that's some story. And I'm sorry to ask, actually, because I don't want to.
Go ahead.
I don't want to bring this stuff up, right? But
no, nothing bothers me anymore.
Oh, okay. Well,
after you've almost died a couple of times, there isn't anything you could say that would bother me.
No, that's true. That's true. No, I see what you're saying. Well, you're doing pretty well then. Let's face it, being so active and then going like that. I mean, I haven't cycled for a couple of years, and I only used to do maybe 50 or 60 miles a weekend. So not every day, like you, but it's addictive. And then all the rest of it as well is addictive with triathlon. And oh man. Anyway, we could go on.
No, I loved it. I was lactose addiction, I had to burn.
Yeah, you had to get rid of it, right? Otherwise, that's it.
No, and I loved it. And I did it despite a number of different physical disabilities that I had.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I played rugby for 30-something years, and I'd blown both of my knees out.
Of course.
And so I had my knees repaired.
Right.
And, so I continued to play until I was 60.
Oh wow. Yeah, okay. That really is the veterans team, right?
Yeah,
At
well,
60.
well, yeah, there was a veterans team. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
last game was the last game I played in was down in the south of France.
See, what a place to play, right?
Oh, it was a great tour,
Yeah.
and I started. I I played in America starting as a freshman in college,
Hmm.
and then I played all through college. And I'm telling you, finding a rugby team in California in those days was hard.
Well, it's not going to be
So
that simple now, I'd have thought.
no, actually, they have a lot of teams.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I actually in 1969 I had the first Chico State rugby tournament.
In
And
69.
Chico, now you've never heard of Chico State, I know.
No, no, no.
It was the number one party school in the United States for
Right.
3 years running by Playboy magazine. It was, and it was a outrageous time. And we would have what was called Pioneer Week, and it was the whole week. The school basically shut down. We built a city in the middle of town, in the middle of the campus, that had saloons, factories, stores, and all kinds of other things that people could do. And every night was a party. One night, our the school at the school, there were at least 5 of the parties I know of. One house, one fraternity. These were all fraternity houses. I was a teak,
Right.
top Kappa Epsilon, and we drank 60 kegs in one house, 61 kegs in another house, 58 kegs in another house.
Wow. Oh my gosh. See, this is where all
Our house only drank 18 kegs, I think, and then we'd go to other people's houses and drink theirs.
well, drink their beer, right? Absolutely. Well, this is where all the movies come from, then, isn't it? It must be your college. and yet, you're a super successful attorney, right? So,
I was actually.
Yeah, exactly. So somehow you managed to balance the party college with actually learning stuff. So that's
Well,
good.
in '69, as a junior in college, and this goes to some of the questions that were asked. What in fact happened.
Mm.
I realized that I was wasting my time.
Oh,
It was all about partying, and I learned how to smoke marijuana,
yeah.
and that was a stupid idea. And so I decided as a junior to quit college, go see the world, and come back when I was more mature and ready to settle down and become an academic person.
Yeah, right. So you ended up going to a different college then, I guess.
No, I ended up going to India.
Oh, to India. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I lived in India for a year as in the Peace Corps,
Oh, right. Right, right. Oh, this is
the
what.
American, the
Yeah,
American Peace Corps.
yeah, yeah. Gosh.
You know,
So,
so
okay. Well, I tell you what, Patrick. Well, I've got some questions probably about that in a
I
minute.
know you
So,
do.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So,
So I've got 15 of them. Do you have those, the same
yeah,
ones?
could have. So there you go. So let's get a start on these questions then, because obviously this is fascinating anyway. Having a chat. But let's do that, because I think I'm sure it'll all dovetail in, if that's okay with you. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Oh, where are you from, by the way?
Just
in
south.
England?
Yeah, just south of London. So on the coast.
Okay, I lived in Highgate.
Highgate. Yeah, every American has ever lived in London has lived in the north of London. It's true.
I lived with a bunch of Aussies, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Well, that must have been interesting. Is all I can say.
No, it was it finally got really boring because all they did was drink.
Exactly. That's what I meant, right? So,
Yeah, I get really bored with that, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what the rugby seems like, right? So Australians and South Africans, well, crazy.
I played against those guys. They kicked our ass.
There's a surprise. Right, exactly. No, I do love that, I must say. Did you ever get to Twickenham then to watch, to see any
Of
big
course
match?
I did.
Of course you
As a
did.
matter of fact, I went to Twickenham Twickenham.
Twickenham, yep.
I'm saying it wrong. Uh, to watch an international game,
Mm.
and I watched this guy there trying to start a fire to barbecue steaks for people to buy
In the ground.
on the ground to steak dinner. And I watched this poor jerk, and he was trying to light these big chunks of wood with a match. I go, "You're an idiot. You don't even know how to light a fire." Well, I grew up camping
Yeah.
and doing this in the woods by myself from the time I was 10 years old. And so I said, let me help you with this. And so I started breaking up wood and setting a fire, and I ended up cooking all the steaks for everybody in Twickenham during the rugby game.
That's pretty good. And there was, my tales just involve lots of beer, but yeah, that's a good one. I
I did
like,
drink a bit of that, but
yeah.
I also fed a lot of my Australian roommates.
No, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
They got
Okay.
free steaks.
Yeah, they were happy, right? So that's great.
Hey,
Wow.
they liked me then.
Oh yeah, then that's it exactly.
Ah,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into. I've already recorded the introduction, so we don't need to worry too much about that at all. So that's good. But yeah. So if I'll just come in and just basically welcome you, and then we'll go into the first question, if that's okay.
please.
Yeah. Okay. So Patrick, thanks very much for joining us. I know this is going to be a fascinating conversation. How are you doing today? You okay?
I'm fine, thank you. Actually, I am doing well.
Yeah.
I'm seated.
Wow, that's okay. No, it's always best to relax, right? When we're doing these
Well,
podcasts.
there isn't. If I tried to stand, I'd be falling on the ground.
Ah, okay, right. Oh, that's because you're a wheelchair user, isn't it?
I'm a quad, yeah.
Oh, right.
I
Oh,
used to be a full quad, and over the years, I have built myself up to where I am what they call an incomplete quad.
an incomplete quad.
Yeah, that's a person who can do things that he's not supposed to do. My hands are still
Oh, right. Yeah.
crippled,
Yeah.
but I got to where I was playing golf
Wow.
in a special chair that stood me up,
Mm.
but I could hold a club and I could hit a club. I could hit a ball.
Yeah.
I had special gloves on that were Velcroed that would stick to the club. Had special handles on the clubs so that I
Yeah.
could stick to it. But I've done a few things, and hang on, let's let the phone stop ringing.
Oh, luckily we can't hear that actually.
Oh, good. All right, never mind then.
Yeah.
So uh, after uh, I realized there were things I could do
Mm.
that
I've seen these golf stand up things before, a while back, a few years ago, I think. Yeah. Well, that's good that you could use that then, right?
they were invented by a guy in California. Yeah,
Oh,
and I
really?
met him.
Mm.
I mean, he's got a fascinating invention. He's not a fascinating person, but it's a great invention.
I'm sure he is very fascinating in case he's watching this. So,
In
before
his
there's
own
any more,
mind.
yeah, yeah. Well, okay. Whoa. Let's leave it there, right? So, Patrick, listen, let's jump into the book and let's find out about that. And so, basically, I mean, I'm really interested, and I know that our listeners will be, to hear what first, well, kind of inspired you to write A Just Revenge. I mean, it's quite some book, and how did that story evolve over the years that it took to write?
Well, it did take 4 years to write. because I dictate everything on my computer because I can no longer type.
Oh, right,
I
yeah.
used to be able to type about 60 words a minute, but I can no longer type. So I would dictate it, but to edit it, I had to edit it with one finger. And so when you go through and you edit, it just takes a while with one finger to tap out what it is you want to do and what you want to change.
Mm.
And I edited it, I think, close to 40 times, going through it and changing it, and it developed. This is my second novel,
Oh, okay.
and I've written several other pieces for magazines and like that. Plus, as an attorney, I wrote a lot of briefs. I did a lot of other things. So writing was not difficult for me, but putting this together was difficult because I wanted to write about something I knew, and I wanted to write about something that would be fun, interesting, and hopefully would be inspiring for other people.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think obviously interesting is useful, isn't it? To keep your own interest in for 4 years, right? And for all of those edits as well. I think it just shows you your tenacity there to really sort of keep at it. And to, considering, the I was I was going to say handicaps, but you know what I mean. So considering
It's all right to say handicaps.
Yeah, but
I mean, I do have limitations.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Limitations. Much prefer.
You and I won't dance together, probably.
No, unless we can get that golf chair with wheels on it or something like that. But anyway, okay. Look, but I'm going to get in trouble with these gags, so let's not do that. No, but you need to get into the groove, as it were, to spend 4 years writing something and with
right.
All
and I wrote the first part. I wrote it one time, and as I read it, it was a bit boring, and there was also a lot of stuff that I put in that I considered too long.
Right.
Like the period I spent in India, I added that way down because there were a lot of things that happened, but it wasn't that interesting.
No, I see what you mean. It must be really difficult to try and do that because the book, it spans multiple continents, and cultures, as you've mentioned, right? So you're in India 1 minute, you're in California the next minute, you're in Europe after that. I mean, is that something from your own travels and life experiences? Okay,
actually was.
That's useful then. So you could draw on that for Sean Roberts' journey then, yeah?
You write about what you know. And like I said, in '69, Chico State was great, but I wasn't going anyplace. And I grew up in a very poor family and decided to become something, to do something. And to do something, you have to achieve things. And Chico wasn't giving me the kind of achievements that I wanted to get. So I decided to do something for the world, and that was to join the Peace Corps and to go to India to help them grow high-yielding varieties of rice.
Right.
Well, that's dumber than rocks because the Indians don't grow high-yielding varieties of rice. They grow what they can because they have huge monsoons that water their rice, which gives them like 40 inches of rain. California grows high-yielding varieties of rice, but the whole rice plant is only 12 inches tall.
Right.
So that's what they wanted grow, and they had seeds for them, but they wouldn't work. And I knew that they wouldn't work. And I told them, I said, this is not going to work. I was in agriculture for 4 years.
Right.
I farmed after school and on some weekends. So yes, I can drive tractor. I can do all of that stuff. I can disc and do da. But I also was an ag major in school, so to speak, in high school.
Right.
And then I continued to farm throughout junior college. When I wasn't playing football on the weekends for my team, I would be farming, working for a woman by the name of Dodo Haskell, who had about 5 farms, and she was a very prosperous woman and a great mentor. So
okay. So you went to the Peace Corps. Obviously, as you say, that the high yielding rice was way too short to be able to deal with the weather and all of that sort of stuff. And you would have thought, actually, wouldn't you, that I guess the Indians would be able to or would know what the best sort of yield that they could get from their. Well, I mean, it's such a huge country, isn't it? So
well, it's a huge country. I lived in one of the states called Bengal.
Right.
And Bengal is where Calcutta is.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I lived about 4-hour train ride from Calcutta in a small village that had one paved road that went through it, and then it went back to dirt road.
Right.
And the language is really complex. The system that we had to train us was run by a very competent man who got sick and had to leave, and left 2 very incompetent people, one language teacher who was swishy gay and didn't understand why somebody like me would want to do this. We started off with 26 people in our group and ended up with 8. So I had a lot of dropouts because they said this is a stupid program.
Right.
But I was determined to do it because it was farming.
Well, exactly. Something that you knew and you wanted to
Something I knew.
Yeah.
And I loved farming.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make any money at it, so I decided not to do it.
Yeah, there is that, of course. I think this is it, isn't it? This is Sean in the book, right? So he transforms.
Yes.
This is I'm beginning to get the picture here. He transforms from a small town farm boy, right? I wonder who that could have been, into a man capable of infiltrating elite circles. I wonder who that could be.
Well, it was after I came back from India, which we came back in a year early. They canceled the program.
All right.
Because it was so dysfunctional. So I came back to California without any clue as to what I was going to do next. It just so happened that an aunt and uncle showed up and wanted a driver, me, to take them to their daughter's coming out party and then to Los Angeles. And so, okay, I can do that. And he paid me $150, and that made me rich.
Right.
That was a lot of money to me at that time because you didn't make any money in the Peace Corps.
Yeah, right, exactly. Some income.
So I had some change. So I got to Los Angeles, and I had another uncle there who said, "Oh, well, then you're here, so why don't you work for me as a plumber?" So I said, okay. And he put me into a room in his garage to sleep until he got a girlfriend who threw me out. So I had no place to go.
Right.
And I met a girl who said, hey, there's this group called Scientology, and they've got a commune down the road from you, why don't you go there and see if they've got a room? So I did. I got into Scientology. I got into the Scientology house. Scientology by L. Ron Hubbard was dysfunctional as far as I was concerned. And I could see that game, and it wasn't one I wanted to play.
Right.
But it was a cheap room, and the guy got me a job as a teletype operator for a stock brokerage firm.
Oh, wow.
So I lived in Los Angeles for almost nothing rent and worked as a teletype operator, saving money every month. And I got into a rugby program with a rugby team that I played against in Sacramento. And they knew who I was. So I got in with them, and I got into a boxing gym because I'd boxed all through high school and then college,
Wow.
junior college. And I got thrown out of the boxing gym because I knocked out this guy who was a contender for a heavyweight championship.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, we were supposed. We were supposed to go half speed, and he decided to knock me out, and I said, "Oh, I'm not going to play," and took him out, and they threw me out of the gym. So
you were asked not to return.
I was asked not to return, but not so polite ways as you would say.
Exactly. Yeah, I can imagine that, a boxing gym. Yeah. No, that's true enough. Okay, so I mean, so this is your upbringing, okay, coming into the book and everything. But
yes,
how did Sean's upbringing measure up to yours? You know, especially his time in nature and his relationship with his father. I mean, did that influence his ability to survive and adapt in such dangerous environments like the ones that are in the book? I mean, tell us a bit about that.
Well, I have used different aliases at different times. Sean was one of those, and so was George Westcott. And that was another story that I won't go into, but when I met this young lady at a party who was being bullied by a group of guys. Now, this was in Marysville, next to Yuba City.
All right.
I stepped in the middle of it. I hate bullies. And there were three of them, and they were harassing her because she was overweight,
right,
and calling her fat and like that. And I didn't like that. I didn't know her, but I don't like that kind of treatment. And I told them to apologize, and apologize right now. And the one guy who was bigger than me decided that he was going to teach me a lesson for interrupting him. And his two friends told him who I was. And then he realized who I was, and he apologized to me and apologized to her and left, and then left the party. So reputation does follow people. And that was how I got my first introduction into the debutante world. And she then took me to this party in Hillsborough, which was in the Bay Area. And that was my first introduction into high society, because the homes in Hillsborough sold at that time in the 60s and the 70s for over $2-3 million.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, they were beautiful, big places, and the parties were enormous.
Yeah,
and they were big deal parties, and most of the people wore suits or a tux. I didn't own either. I had a sport coat and a pair of slacks. So that's what I wore. And I wore a different shirt at each party so that at least it was clean.
Well, no, that's true, isn't it? And you would see the same people again, right? So at least you did have a different shirt on. That's something, right?
And yeah, and a different tie sometimes.
Oh well. So I mean, that's the thing, though, isn't it? So Sean's come from like quite a simple background. Okay, so obviously with living in India, with doing, how had he got to India at that time? That's the question.
Oh yes, he'd be back from India.
Okay.
And I am now living back in the Yuba City area. And it was before I went to LA, So then
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because obviously, as you say, Sean infiltrates this society, as it were. And you obviously also clearly get into the society as well. And I mean, what sort of commentary were you looking to make about things there? I mean, you mentioned about people in tuxes and suits and things like that back then. I mean, is there anything to say about the class and morality, especially in America, where, supposedly there is no class system, as people say that there might be in the UK?
Right. There is. And these guys from Hillsborough that I'd met were really snobs. Now, I couldn't be a snob because I don't have the upbringing to be a snob. I don't have the education to be a snob at that time. Nor did I have the money. And I had to work during the weekends and during the week after school. This was while I was in junior college that this was going on, that I then got into going to these parties down in San Francisco. And so I played a good old boy. I was a good old boy from Yuba City. You could almost hear my accent. So I'd speak a little bit. No, and I didn't do that. But no. But I grew up with good old boys. I farmed with these guys. And I also pick up accents. That was one of the things that I used to do. My father was a entertainer.
Oh, right.
So I picked up a lot of some of those traits. Yeah. That was one of the only good things about him.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, well, it looks like you infiltrating, that word again, the elite society. And this was because of your intervention with the girl, as you mentioned earlier on, right?
Right.
But
this is while I was in junior college.
Okay, so this is junior college. So you started that journey into that society. You couldn't have done that by yourself. You must have been mentored. It's not like you just turned up on the doorstep and knocked on the door and say, "Hi there, with your tie. Can I please come in to your party?" Who mentored you with this? I mean, how does that really work with Sean as well? And do you actually deal with mentors or trainers or professors or something?
I was very lucky, Chris, that I've had 4 or 5 mentors, male mentors, and one female mentor growing up. And one was a cop, highway patrolman, who happened to nab me as we were running away from a veterans hall where we had just stolen some cakes. And he called me over. He was my next door neighbor.
Uh-oh.
He called me over to his house, and he was on his porch, and he saw me running by, saw all of us running by, heading towards the levee. I lived, by the way, next to the Feather River.
Right.
And the Feather River was a big river. and there was a levee, and then there was the little forest, and then there was a river, and that's what I grew up on. And so I wasn't afraid of being alone or being in the wilderness or like that because of that.
Hmm.
And so he stopped me and he said, called me back. Well, he's a cop. I'm not going to argue with him. His name was Leo. And so I came back, and he then started questioning me about what we were doing. Well, we had stolen these cakes from the back room of this place. We started a fight in the front. So everybody went out to the front, and somebody snuck in the back and stole the cakes. We were running out the back.
That's a big heist, right?
I know. Cakes was a big thing.
Yeah. Oh, right. It must have been. Must have been. Yeah.
So I I got scared, started to run away. I was wearing a big coat. It was cold. It was winter. He grabbed the back of my coat, dropped me 4 steps down on my back, knocked the wind out of me, and called me back up, and then asked me what we were doing. So I told him the truth. And he said, "Oh, well, that's okay. I thought you were stealing booze. You can't have booze, but you can have a cake, And so he and I got to know each other. He was my first mentor. And he taught me about the law and how the law worked in a way that was functional.
Mm.
My next mentor was a gentleman who ran the newspaper company for which I was delivering the newspaper every morning at 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning, 7 days a week, and would pick up my newspaper with my brother, Steve, who I called Hank in this book. And we would fold the papers and deliver them throughout the area. My route was about 20 miles long, and so was Steve. And so we bicycled throughout the area, delivering all these newspapers. That's how I became a strong cyclist.
Mm.
I was in this one-gear bicycle carrying about 50 to 60 pounds of newspapers every day. So you either get strong or you get dead.
Yeah.
And,
I remember my paper route. I know what you mean.
So delivered these newspapers, and he was a crippled and was going to Chico State. And I helped him in a lot of ways and talked to him a lot. He was a very intelligent man. And he kind of took me under his wing, and then I became his right-hand man and did a lot of stuff in the newspaper business. And he also mentored me about how to be a better person and less pugilistic.
Yeah, hang on. You mean get into fewer fights? Is that what that means?
Not needing to get into fights.
Right.
Figuring out a way not to.
Okay. Yeah.
As opposed to needing to.
Right.
I was angry a lot as a young man.
Right.
Yeah. My father left when I was 10 and left us with no money and no income. My mother was uneducated, and she got a job working as a warehouse person with a sophomore in high school education out of Nebraska, and 4 kids.
Wow. Yeah, pretty tough. I see what you mean. So, I mean, how did that relationship then with your dad leaving, your father leaving, how did that affect you then? Because obviously you then had to kind of grow up without any male role models in the house, or did you have somebody? Is that why you had so many mentors?
That was why I had the mentors.
Mm.
My dad was an alcoholic
No.
and was physically brutal. He taught me how to fight. He was also a professional boxer.
Okay.
So he taught me how to fight and learn all the right ways to do it. But I got the crap kicked out of me on a regular basis
Yeah,
from the
right.
time I was about 6 or 7 years old until and then when I was 10, I actually was coming back from a fight. My neighborhood, we used to fight in my neighborhood on Saturdays, and we would pair up and fight for entertainment for the group.
Right.
There were about 10 guys in our group, and then we would have other guys show up to watch. And I came home. Nobody would fight me after a while. And I came home, finally one guy who was 4 years older than me fought me. And I had a bruise on my cheek. And my dad was in the car, the 55 Pontiac station wagon, getting...
Oh, looks like we've just stalled there for a moment.
And he says, "You've got a bruise on your cheek." I said, "Yeah, I didn't know that, but I won." And he says, "Yeah, so what did you prove?" Shut the door and drove away. And that was like shocking to me that he wasn't proud of me for fighting.
Right.
And that let me down in terms of him as a role model. And when I walked in the backyard, my mom said to me, "Forget him, he's gone." And that was my mother's attitude about things.
Right.
If they weren't advantageous for you, you drop them, you forget them, and you walk away.
Very logical.
It was survival.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's absolute survival.
Yeah.
So I keep bouncing around on you, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. This is fascinating stuff. No, seriously, Patrick, it's no problem. I mean, you can tell how mentorship played a key role for you because obviously with your father leaving, and that must have been quite tough. You're doing the thing that your father did in hope of some recognition from him, which you didn't receive. And that must have been quite crushing, really, at that age. So, I can understand how things change from there in terms of needing to have mentors. And I think
that was part of why I was so angry all the time.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, like you've been let down, that kind of thing, right? So
betrayed is the word.
Yeah, there we go. You see. So can you sort of talk about the importance of mentors and how that theme is reflected in the book then? Because is it because of the way that you get into that society, or is it the whole thing? Because, obviously when you start looking at the darker, parts of the book, how does this come into play, the mentorship from people?
It was without having the right people around me to give me a way to be. For example, the private investigator was a person of society. I talk about meeting him when there was another guy in the room, Philip Rosenthal, and Philip Rosenthal became one of my final mentors until he died at about 85 years old. So he was my mentor through most of my life. And he actually was a cousin of my ex-wife.
Okay, yeah, amazing.
That's a long jump. That's a jump from another to another period.
You see, this is your thing, isn't it? Right, your background is quite amazing, really. You've got agriculture, farming, law, lots of sports. I mean, the time in India, it's amazing. So did that help you then, do you think, in crafting this compelling action-oriented narrative?
Yes. You write what you know.
Yeah.
And, I'm always amazed at the reading that I've done. I'll tell you, my worst fear is the fact that I'm dyslexic.
Okay, right.
And so I had to teach myself how to read. And I took courses on how to read with my fingers to keep things going, and how to realize when I had misread something, how I would get sleepy and go back, find out what I misread, correct it in my mind, and then I could go on.
Right.
Which for me in the study of law was very important, because I couldn't speed read. And I became a speed reader through a group, a course called Evelyn Wood's, so that I could read an entire book in 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
And have about 80% comprehension.
That's a useful skill. Yeah, as you
It was
say.
a very useful skill for reading regular novels and like that. It was a terrible skill for trying to read law books.
Yeah, well, where you really need the detail, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I can imagine. It was no wonder you had or 8 secretaries working for you in your practice. Then, at least they could help you with that, right?
Well, they do the minimal stuff that I needed. I did the litigation and the interviews and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You
the face-to-face kind of important stuff, I guess.
Right. I was also a private investigator.
Might as well throw something else in, Patrick. I mean, yes.
Well, I did.
Yeah.
Before I passed the bar, I started off working for an insurance company as a private investigator.
Right.
And learned how to ask questions and get results and figure out what people needed in order to settle their case, their claim against whatever it was that my company that I was working for did to them.
Well, that would be quite good, actually. That's a good grounding then for the adversarial. Yeah, the adversarial side of law, right? So you weren't afraid of doing that. So that's interesting. So in the book, then, where you've got Sean kind of doing obviously the same kind of thing, is he more, I guess, a reflection of you, or is he what you would have liked to have been, if you know what I mean?
Sean was a reflection of me. I'm sorry to say that. I hate to brag. Well, that's not true. I do brag.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
But again, I have to write about what I know. And it was easier to write about who I am than to try to make up a character completely fictional.
Yeah, well, I don't think you needed to, Patrick, to be fair, with everything that you've done, with all of your experience.
I mean, there were fictional parts
yeah.
to this, don't get me wrong. But there were parts that, although they were fictional, they were parts that I had done at other times, but I just made them fictional at that part.
Right, I got you. It just shows you, doesn't it? Well, listen, we are sort of kind of running towards the end of our time. As much fun as we're having, we have to think about our listeners, I guess, don't we? Oh, but anyway, so far, this book has received, well, I've been told about 30 positive reviews, which is pretty good for a debut album, right? But
yes.
Of all of that feedback, what surprised you the most, or even moved you in terms of feedback?
I don't get that impressed by what other people care about me because I've done what I've done. So if you like it or not, it's irrelevant in a lot of ways. I like it that you like it, but if you don't like it, that's your choice.
Everyone has a choice, right?
Yeah, and you've missed the point.
And you're wrong, right? Okay. No, I get that. I know what you're saying. So I think that as an author, that's probably a good way to look at things. It's the same with being an entertainer, right? Or anything else, as we've mentioned earlier on, just to be able to sort of like compartmentalize that sort of stuff. And I think some authors find that really difficult to do that. So that's quite a good.
They get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
They take it personally.
Yeah.
And it would be the same as you as a host to something like this. If the person you were interviewing came down on you for wearing your glasses funny, or
I know, happens all the time.
Your hair doesn't look right.
Okay, calm down. No, you're right. Exactly right. Exactly. So I mean that's the whole point, isn't it? I don't know what to say after that. Anyway, no, I'm only kidding. So if a reader then could take away just one message from A Just Revenge, what do you think that message? What would you want that message to be?
The message would be: don't quit.
Right.
Never give up.
Mm.
Never give up. Never quit, because for example, in the times that I've climbed mountains, I've climbed cliffs, I learned how to climb what is called a chimney, which is a split in two rocks 100 feet in the air, and you can't climb up one side or the other. So you plant your feet on one side of it and your arms on the other side, and you climb up with your arms and your feet on opposite sides of the chimney until you get to a point where the chimney narrows, and then you can go back to climbing directly with your hands and feet.
Oh wow! So you're shimmying up the inside of a chimney, then, basically.
Basically.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So don't give up. And I think that's right, though. From your experience in your life, you haven't given up. You're still doing the things that you can. You're still sort of trying to push yourself as far as you can, which is what you've always done by the sounds of things. It's quite amazing, Patrick. Honestly, it's been great speaking to you, and I hope that you've enjoyed this as well as much as we have. I'm sure our listeners are going to absolutely love this. So thank you very much. What can I say? Have you enjoyed it?
This has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I wish you the best.
Well, thank you very much. Well, let me just do this outro for everybody. That was Patrick L. Scott, author of A Just Revenge. It's a novel that's as layered and unpredictable as the life he's led. And I'm sure from listening to everything that Patrick's done over the last few minutes, you're going to agree with that. So from small town roots to international adventures, his work reminds us that no matter where we start, it's the resilience, the mentors, and the lessons we gather along the way of our lives that shape our stories. And I've got to say, Patrick, your story is something. So if today's no. So listeners, if today's episode intrigued you, be sure to grab your copy of A Just Revenge. It's available new and now on Amazon. Just search for the title or Patrick L. Scott's name and dive into this journey of action, justice, and transformation. And if you enjoyed our conversation, well, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow book lovers. This is the BrightWord Books Podcast, where words light the way. And until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep turning the page. And as for you, Patrick, keep doing what you're doing, because it sounds great.
Thanks, sir.
All right. See you next time.
Take care, brother.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.